Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. It's great to have you guys with us today. Thank you so much for joining us on this fine Tuesday afternoon in America. We're doing things a little bit differently today. We're doing the show live, so maybe a little bit of a different aspect. We're going to be taking your questions and all that good stuff. In just a few moments, we're going to be joined by a brilliant man, a fan favorite on this program, Russ Tice, former senior NSA intel analyst and a great American, also a whistleblower. Blowing the whistle on some big things in this country on government corruption before it was popular to do so. So a fan favorite on the show. He's going to be joining us, like I said, in just a few moments. President Trump having a very eventful day today down at Mar-a-Lago, hosting a press conference and laying out some agenda items on where he's going to be taking this country in just under 2 weeks now when he takes back that Oval Office. Yesterday, a big day in this country with the election being certified. No Marxist Dems objecting to those election results. Kind of weird because those folks are big-time election deniers. But nice to see, nonetheless. Maybe they'll finally start to rally behind President-elect Donald Trump and try to help us make America great again. I think it's in everyone's best interest, not just us Republicans or conservatives, but all Americans. Who doesn't want to make America great again? You find me a person who doesn't want to do that, and I'll tell you they're a Marxist because they are. But President Trump laying out his agenda among many of the list items, which we're going to take up with Russ Tice in just a few moments, was the renaming of the Gulf of Mexico. Now, this is one we hadn't heard from before. We've heard no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, all that good stuff, ending the wars over in Palestine and Israel and Gaza, ending the war in Ukraine. But this is a new one. Take a listen to President Trump's vision for the Gulf of Mexico, or soon to be what was the Gulf of Mexico. Here he is.
It's ours. We're going to be changing sort of the opposite of Biden, where he's closing everything up, essentially getting rid of $50 to $60 trillion worth of assets. We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's appropriate. It's appropriate. And Mexico has to stop allowing millions of people to pour into our country. They can stop them. And we're going to put very serious tariffs on Mexico and Canada.
You know, it's kind of got a nice ring to it, the Gulf of America. And, you know, everything President Trump says is very logical. You know, you just boil it down to logic. There's nothing complex about most of the things he says because he makes it very simple for all Americans to understand. You didn't have to go to an Ivy League school or graduate with a 4.0 to understand what he's saying. And I think that's why President Trump has resonated among the American people like no president ever has. Now, you take it, like I said, as you wish, but that's my view on it. And, you know, he's at a 1,000-foot level where some of these politicians want to be at a 10, 20,000 foot level so they could try to seem smarter than you, and they're not. And President Trump doesn't try to do that. President Trump also laying out, or maybe not laying out, but giving us his vision on two very important places right now, Panama and Greenland. President Trump not ruling out the possibility of military force in either of those places. Take a listen.
To Greenland and the Panama Canal, so forth. Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you tell us a little bit about what your plan is? Are you going to negotiate a new treaty? Are you going to ask the Canadians to hold a vote? What is the strategy?
Yeah, I can't assure you. You're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this. We need them for economic security. The Panama Canal was built for our military. I'm not going to commit to that now. It might be that.
That's got to have the Marxist Dems' heads absolutely spinning. Anytime President Trump answers a question like that with a refusal of an answer, which he has every right to do. Joe Biden's done it to us for the last 4 years, and when he did give an answer, it was something that none of us really understood what he was saying. So President Trump has every right to do so, but it's going to be fun and interesting to see. And President Trump making two very good points. Are we going to take it over, or are we going to allow China? Because what people don't realize is it's us or China. Uh, China's presence down in South America and down in countries like Guatemala and Honduras and Panama has grown exponentially over the last 10 years or so, building dams, building power plants where they can power things. What's next? Military ships down the border. I mean, we remember what happened in the Cuban Missile Crisis. Is that next with China? So the way I see it, and I think the way President Trump sees it, as it's either ours or it's China's, and we better beat them to the punch before it's too late. And that's the way I believe he sees Greenland. The other thing that's, that we haven't been talking about since we're back here on the show now, since Christmas and New Year's, and the mainstream media also isn't talking about, is those drones. I'm a New Yorker. I travel quite a bit. I've got to check out those drones firsthand, very up close, both on an airplane and from the ground. But they've seemingly seemed to disappear. Now, interestingly enough, a man committed suicide on New Year's Day in front of Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, blowing up a Cybertruck, only taking his own life, fortunately, for everyone who was a bystander. But he left behind a note that basically said, and we're going to get Russ Tice's take on this in just a few moments, but basically said those drones that were flying over were China drones. It's very sophisticated gravitic propulsion, almost UFO-like, if UFOs were to exist. But laying out this whole plan that these are basically Chinese drones. The American people know about it, and they're not doing anything about it. They're allowing China to continue to eat our lunch. I want to bring in our guest today, as I've told you and teased. It's Russ Tice, great American, former senior NSA intel analyst and whistleblower. Russ, it's great to have you with us. Before we get into the whole Greenland, Panama things, which I want to get your take on, among many other things, I want to talk about these drones and what's happened to those drones. You and I were talking on the phone yesterday about this manifesto that this man left behind, the Las Vegas, I don't know if we would even call him a bomber, but man who blew up the car in front of Trump Tower, saying that these are Chinese drones coming from submarines. What's your take, Russ? Last we spoke, you had alluded to the fact that you believed it was some sort of U.S. Military contractor operation. Any thoughts?
Well, coming from a Chinese submarine, right? First of all, we have a system, it's called SOSUS, that keeps track of, basically they're underwater microphones or hydrophones,
right?
That listen for sound. And the Chinese are not yet quite very good at building submarines that are super quiet. Although they've stole some of our technology. I think one of our own engineers was a traitor and sold a lot of that technology to China, but they're still not that good at it. I find it very difficult to believe that the Chinese could sneak up. Not only that, if to launch something like that, I'm assuming it's not capable of swimming underwater and flying in the air.
Right.
Kind of like those little bugs when we were kids in the swimming pool. They could swim and fly at the same time. I don't know what those bugs are called. I always thought they were kind of cool, though. But
they were cool until they bit you, Russ.
Oh, I didn't know they could bite you.
I mean, I think anything in this world could get you, right?
Well,
an ant could even get you, Russ.
I used to play with them in my hand. I thought they were kind of cool. I guess I got away with that. But so I still find it very difficult to believe that these things came from an Iranian mothership or from a Chinese mother sub, and then flew over. And now they're talking about using anti-gravity technology to fly these things. I've dabbled in a little bit of that and that sort of thing, and that kind of research takes an awful lot of power just to create a gravitational or vacuum anti-gravitational field to be able to try to come up with that. To try to put that in the air, it's right now I think pretty much impossible. But we are working on a lot of interesting technologies. It's been a while since I was privy to a lot of that, but I find it very difficult. I still believe that this was a SAP program that We had the conventional, very largely built conventional drones with the 4-point or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8-point rotaries to keep it airborne, and that these things were designed to do something that probably we don't have the capability to do now.
Right.
And I'd prefer not to talk about it because it's probably something that we really need for our national defense. And so I don't want to give that idea away, because if it's true, I don't want,
What do you mean, Russ? When you came out and blew the whistle, they said you're a traitor to this country. You're a bad American. Why would you not want to, blow the way? What these people say, it's just joke. Obviously, you're not a traitor to this country. You're a great American, which is why Lou loved you so much, and it's why I love you so much. But no, I mean, I think you're probably right. And I mean, I can't tell you, and you guys can go back for any of you guys who haven't watched all the episodes with Russ, but Lou was talking to Russ. I don't know, what has it been, 2 years? It was about 2 years or so, a year and a half or so ago. And you told us things, Russ, that it was like you were a mind reader, or you were foreseeing what was going to happen, because I can't think of a thing that you had told us that didn't pan out to be true or didn't come to be true. I mean, you had told us the Trump assassination attempt, you were terrified it was going to happen. And, you tried to, that's the reason why you had first gotten in contact with Lou, because you were scared about an assassination attempt on President Trump. And now this is well over a year ago, like I said, a year and a half, maybe even 2 years ago, which you got in contact with Lou because you were nervous about that. There's a litany of things that you have been right about, Russ, and a lot of people have been wrong about. Perhaps one of the biggest things you were right about was the Patriot Act. But I want to go back to this fella who decided to blow up that car in front of the Trump Hotel. Clearly a smart guy from all accounts. If you look at his military, it's Matthew Livelsberger. His security clearance, he had a TSSCI, which from my understanding, it's just a regular top secret security clearance, bottom level security clearance for anyone, with something called a UAP and a USAP. Now, when I did my research, what I could find on those security clearances, which it's not very readily available, the information on some of these clearances, the UAP one would be some sort of security clearance that would make this fella privy to if there was such thing as aliens or if there was such things as UFOs. The other one was the USAP clearance, which is something that you just mentioned, the SAP programs, which would give him some insight into these SAP programs, which you have told us in the past are very, very tight-niched and can be even so tight-niched that the president of the United States might not even know about a SAP program that's being run. So this fella, no dumb fella. And he writes in this manifesto that he's just pretty much tired of all the corruption and everything that's going on in this country and the things that we're doing overseas and all the wrongdoing we're doing in this country. How do you read it after reading this manifesto, Russ? Now, I'm not trying to make this guy a hero or anything, but the way I read it, Russ, and I want your take on this because you're a professional. You've spent, your career in the military and public service. The way I read it was this man was crying out for help. What did you read it as?
I tend to agree with that. And, you got to realize these we call them snake eaters in our business. These guys, they see the worst of the worst. Right. When they go on these deployments, they see the bodies of children just being strewn about. They see the most horrific things, and that's got to eat on your mind. I've seen a little bit of that, and to this day, to think back, it's horrifying to have to deal with that every time you go out on deployment. This guy was hurting. I think his marriages were not working out, which is typical. So, a lot of times these guys, as far as the USAP, that's an unacknowledged special access program, is what the USAP is. The other one, when I was stationed at Wright-Patt in the Air Force, I was literally working in the unit that dealt with foreign space communications and non-communications control systems. Now, were those little green men in spaceships? No, they were other countries that put things in and through and out of space. So, although those programs had different kinds of designators for the what we would call them. So I'm not familiar with that first designator that you just mentioned. That might be new since I haven't been privy to it. But I think this fella, maybe he's heard of something that's a little bit outlandish, and he's just incorporated that in some of the things. There are times when we go in the field where they'll take a specialist who's in the intel community, and their job is to go do a specific task, to do something very sneaky in a part of the world where we're not supposed to be. And the idea is to get in and to get out without anyone knowing we were ever there. It's like sneaking in and putting like a little Trojan horse in something, just in case in the future you might need to pull the trigger on that Trojan horse. The special forces guys, they're there to basically get the specialist in and to get him out and have him do the mission and whatever that the intel guy's specialty is, and to make sure that you don't get captured or get found out, or if you do, make sure that the specialist doesn't live to tell the tale, so that the enemy can't torture the information out of them. So it's not that I've ever been on anything like that, mind you, but anyhow, it's so they're not really steeped into the SAP programs, but they are part of SAP programs, especially when it requires the ins and outs. So they're literally physically getting into certain parts. And most of the stuff, my SAP programs were all overseas. And I did work indeed with the Navy SEALs, SEAL Team 6, when I was working with the Navy programs. So it's I'm a little familiar with how that works. I never worked with the Green Beret, but I have worked with another branch of the Army that's snake eaters. But so I think this guy was hurting. He heard a few things. He maybe put added thought that he may have thought something, but and he took his own life apparently just to try to make a statement, and that's sad because apparently he felt that he could not go seek professional help because they might ground him as far as going out with his units. And it turned out poorly that this fella is gone.
Yeah. And I mean, reading through some of his communications that he had forwarded to some of these folks that he was trying to get a hold of to try to blow his whistle, I mean, he was clearly intimidated and clearly nervous. And for a man like with a background like his, for him to be intimidated, Russ, he must have really either seen or believed something was happening. And like I said, from all accounts, it seemed from his friends and ex-girlfriend that this man was completely level-headed and, had just seen enough. I can't say it. I was never in the military. I was never overseas deployed. Like you had said, these folks see dismembered bodies, kids, women, children. You go down the list of things that they see in the military, and I think it probably does have an effect on him. And he alluded to something that happened in 2019 about a human rights violation that could have also taken effect on him. Russ, I want to take a quick break here. When we return, I want to go a little bit further into these aliens that you speak about. It was something Lou was very keen on, UFOs and aliens. And I also want to take up President Trump going into Greenland and Panama and the Gulf of America. We're coming right back with Russ Tice, former senior NSA intel analyst. Stay with us, folks.
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that we're making it through. My employees and I want to thank you for your continued support by extending our wholesale prices on classic MyPillows. Get standard classic MyPillows only $14.98. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.98. But it gets even better. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.98. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows $29.98 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including my standard size MyPillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98, Kings only $1 more. Not only that, order $75 or more, ship absolutely free. From all of us here at MyPillow, thanks America!
Mike Lindell, a great American, great friend of this show and a great entrepreneur. MyPillow.com/John for all your savings on all MyPillow products. Christmas just passed, so I'm all checked out on MyPillow products, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't go get yourself some. And I'm talking to you, Russ Tice. Russ, before we went to break, you'd mentioned those little green fellas that we call aliens or refer to as aliens here in America on planet Earth. It was something Lou is fascinated in. President Trump, at an interview one time, pointed Lou unofficial UFOs are. Give me your take on UFOs and the thought of extraterrestrial life. Is it out there? Does it exist? Have you seen any evidence to prove that it does exist or it doesn't exist?
I try to keep an open mind, but that said, I did work at FTD, which is where supposedly all the technology and the bodies of the little green men go to be autopsied, and the technology is and I was in the foreign space program analysis program at Wright Pat in Ohio. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. There are no little green men. There are no alien space crafts that are coming in. It's not happening. I think the Air Force likes to just tease that out there so that people are always talking about that capability and bantering back and forth, when in reality a lot of these sightings are actually our own technology that we're testing, that's being seen here and there. I'm in the space business. A lot of times the astronauts who only had would have a top secret clearance, and there's a difference between top secret and top secret SCI. SCI incorporates signals intelligence, although a TSSCI is not a SAP program, which people get that confused. SAPs have their own security systems with their own servers and everything separate than the JWIC systems that are involved with TSSCI. JWIC is a uniformal computer system where they share all the TSSCI information.
Right.
But it's not there. It's being tweaked by the military just to keep people from thinking, what technology are we working on now, or what technology the enemy might have. So it's kind of funny. When I was there, I was a young man. I was single. I used to some of the young gals at Wright State University that was there. I used to tell them that I could get them on base and show them that infamous hangar where all that was supposed to be taken care of. Yeah. And then of course I get them on base and we drive slowly by the hangar, and it's just a big airplane hangar, right? And they'd all be going, ooh and oh. Of course, I'm trying to impress them because I'm trying to get in good with them, if you know what I mean, as a young fella. But those days are gone. But I'm a happily married man now, so that was my own way of utilizing that mystique for my own purposes. The Air Force, I think, is doing it just to tweak everybody and keep them talking about these things. They don't exist. Perhaps I've always thought, well, maybe there's a way for a foreign entity in another galaxy or something to send drones. But if you think about just how far away our closest galaxy is, Andromeda, the amount of years it would take, light years, to get from here to there, unless you've been able to figure that one out. It for a life form, it's nearly impossible. For a drone capability, you have to deal with the power source in between, now of which that anti-gravity might be concept for that, but it's pretty slim to none that we have foreign space critters floating around, keeping an eye on us.
The interesting thing about it, Russ, is if there are out there, light years away, galaxies away, the technology they would use to get here would defy probably all odds and all gravity and any sort of science we believe here in America. So that's the interesting thing I think about it. If they're using a drone, Russ, they're not plugging a 12 volt into the wall, a DJI drone, and plugging it into the wall and good old fashioned charging it like we would, and they're probably not filling up a jet with Jet A petroleum to send it out here. So that's the interesting thing. The interesting thing that I look at. If they were out there and they were to get here, what would be the means of transportation? How would they do it? And just how much would it defy gravity and all other things we were taught in science in 8th grade? So that's the way I look at it. Folks, for any of you guys joining us here on Rumble or Facebook or Twitter, if you guys have any questions for us, like I said, today's show, we're doing it live. Any questions for Russ, any questions for myself, be sure to drop them into the chat box and we'll try to get to them at the end of the show. Russ and I like to talk a lot, so we're going to try to get to your question before the end of the show. Russ, I want to turn to President Trump's press conference today, in which first we'll get to the Gulf of Mexico, soon to be the Gulf of America, before we move on to some territories that he's got his eye on, oddly enough. What do you think? The Gulf of America, I kind of like it, the ring to it.
Well, it's not, America is not just the United States.
Right.
Mexico is part of America. So the Central America is part of America. The northern part of South America is part of America. So kind of makes sense to me. But in some instances, I think President Trump is tweaking their nose and you see this in the press, and their heads are exploding about all this. I can't imagine that President Trump isn't sitting back with a big, eating grin on his face when he says these things. I find it hilarious, but hey, I'm all for it. They wanted to change everything else. The liberals, Fort Bliss and everything else is, hell, I think even in Colorado, they changed a couple of names of the mountains because they didn't like, who the guy was. They were like, I think it was Mount Evans or, I can't remember, you
go down to Christopher Columbus. They wanted him gone out of New York. Every single statue of every single Confederate general or Confederate flag or whatever it was, they wanted it gone. I mean, he may be doing it as a troll move, Russ, but everything he does has a meaning to it. And he's playing three-dimensional chess, I think, constantly with the media and with the Marxist leftists. And they fall for it every single time. I mean, they fall for what I call the banana in the tailpipe from the old Beverly Hills Cop every single time. And I mean, I'm reading here today as I'm going through my afternoon reading, and they're absolutely melting down. One came across here from the New York Times. Trump speaks at Mar-a-Lago in a rambling news conference. Trump talked about taking Greenland and the Panama Canal by force and dodged questions about January 6th pardons. I don't think he's dodged any questions about the pardons. That one I didn't see. He's made it very clear, and he made it very clear before he won this election, standing on that debate stage, that he was going to pardon these folks. So I'm not sure what the New York Times is talking about. I don't know if you saw, but what's his name? Zuckerberg over at Facebook is finally starting to fall in line. I don't know what's taking him so long, but he's starting to fall in line. He appointed Dana White to his board, and he says they're done with censorship. So I think it's time the New York Times start to fall in line. Russ, I want to turn to two of those other territories I'd mentioned, Panama and Greenland. President Trump talking about maybe taking them by force. So I'm going to play here again for the audience his comments when asked if he used the military.
To Greenland and the Panama Canal, so forth. Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you tell us a little bit about what your plan is? Are you going to negotiate a new treaty? Are you going to ask the Canadians to hold a vote? What is the strategy?
Yeah, I can't assure you. You're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this. We need them for economic security. The Panama Canal was built for our military. I'm not going to commit to that now. It might be that.
President Trump, like I said, everything he does is three-dimensional chess, and there's always a deeper meaning to it. But he's right. If you remember back in my monologue, it's either ours or China's. So either we take it or China takes it. And China, like I said, dominating South America, dominating up to even Mexico. And I think there will even be a day where we see their influence grow in Mexico. Not that it's not already exponential with their drug import business that they're running down there with fentanyl, but in other ways as well. We may soon see missiles on our border from China, from Russia, you name it, maybe from Iran. So what President Trump said, in my opinion, I think is absolutely correct as it pertains to the Panama Canal. We'll get your take on that first, Russ.
Well, Panama, if I recall, we had to take it over from the French, who when they tried it, that didn't work too well for them. And then we had to deal with Colombia, and then I think we fostered rebellion so that Panama became its own country. Then as soon as they did that, we created the deal with Panama, right, which was a newly created country. I think originally it was a 99-year, basically where we controlled the land for 99 years. But if I recall, the administration of the Panama Canal was supposed to be with the United States in perpetuity.
Right.
Well, if that is the case, then the Panamanians have gone back on that agreement by letting the Chinese, of all people, control both the Pacific and the Caribbean side of the Panama Canal. Right. President Trump's absolutely right. We need that to ferry military vessels from to and fro, as opposed to having to go all the way down the Straits of Magellan and the passage of Drake's Passage, which is not so much as hazardous as it used to be when we had sailing ships, but it still takes some time to do that. So, and as well as our commerce. So, and then they've jacked the prices up outrageously for
right,
for us to use a canal that we built ourselves.
Right.
So President Trump's, I do believe he's got something there, and I think this is a warning shot the president's sending to the Panamanians that, hey, it's time to stop dealing with letting the Chinese run the roost. Now, obviously, the Chinese are pumping money into Panama to do this. The Belt and Roads whole thing with the Chinese, they're doing these infrastructure jobs all over the world to gain influence, and then ultimately give these loans and then control these countries to make sure, especially in the UN, where they're not going to speak up with whatever China wants to do, because they're beholding to the Chinese interests that have helped them out with infrastructure capabilities in these countries. So China is literally at our doorstep right now, and they're controlling a capability. First of all, we built it, we paid for it. Right. I mean, I've got my sweater on because we got 12 inches of snow out there, and in order that they here, normally you guys get the snow, not us down here. This time we got whacked with the snow, but in honor of President Clinton, I've got my sweater on here. So, but it's President Trump's absolutely right. I think he understands that we need to negotiate some kind of an agreement to kick the daggone Chinese out of there. And make sure that we're guaranteed the control of that thing. So because sort of like the Monroe Doctrine, this thing is in our hemisphere, and it's very important to national security in this country. Right. So as far as going down there with the military and I don't know, sending in the 82nd or 101st Airborne, I doubt he'd do that. But you know how President Trump is. He knows how to negotiate. And the first shot for President Trump is to throw something out there that's kind of sometimes outrageous, that people go, "Oh crap, man, we got President Trump to deal with," and the man doesn't fool around, So I think the man is reading his own book on negotiations and the power of the deal, and he's setting up the deal.
I got to be honest. I mean, there's so many people I'd rather deal with than President Trump if I were an adversary or on the other side. I mean, look what he did to Justin Trudeau in Canada. He embarrassed the man out of his job. I mean, who else can do that? But he's a tough negotiator. He's a tough guy. So I feel bad for whoever has to deal with him. And I don't think he's going to use force on anything, because he probably won't have to. He's got his way to cripple people with just words. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do with something like tariffs. Russ, we're going to take one more quick break here. When we return, I want to take up just under 2 weeks to go before he returns to office and takes the Oval again, about some of his agencies that he has to staff and some of these folks who are going to be taking over these agencies, and will they be ready to hit the ground running? We're talking with Russ Tice, former senior NSA intel analyst. We're coming right back, folks. Stay with us.
Just like all of you, I had problems sleeping. I had tried every pillow out there and nothing worked. I'd flip-flop all night, use my arm for support, and fall asleep, or I'd wake up with a sore neck or maybe a headache. Well, quality sleep comes from keeping your neck straight at night. You have to fill in that space between your head and your bed. That's why I invented My Pillow. My Pillow's patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs, and it doesn't matter if you sleep on your back, stomach, side, or any combination of all three.
When I got My Pillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night, and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get Classic King My Pillows for only $19.98. Queen size just $18.98. Standard Classic My Pillows only $14.98. That's right, only $14.98. Plus all orders $75 or more ship absolutely free.
Folks, we're back. We're talking with Russ Tice, another great American, along with Mike Lindell, a great American. MyPillow.com/John for all your discounts on all MyPillow products. Russ, President Trump, like I said, under 2 weeks till he heads back to the Oval. He's got a lot of work to do. He's got some new people he's testing out for agencies. Mike Waltz over at CIA, Kash Patel over in the FBI, Tulsi Gabbard, all folks who have never held positions like this before. A lot of people worried about these folks not being able to hit the ground running, particularly the NSC, the NSA. What's your take on who he's got to run these agencies and the issues they face now heading into January 20th?
Well, when President Trump was President Trump 45, he was given a list of folks who were supposedly be very competent at these positions, and most of them, they had impressive resumes, but they all had daggers in their hands with President Trump's name on the dagger. So, in other words, there was no loyalty there at all. I mean, you had General Milley saying he was going to give in the Chinese any information that President Trump was going to do as far as orders to the military. To me, the word for that's treason. So it looks to me like President Trump is picking people that will be loyal and will work to affect his policy, which is the way it's supposed to be. Even if you have a disagreement with an issue or two with the president, he was voted in this president, not the person that's that's being put into a policy position. And your job is to, if you're asked your opinion, you give your opinion. The
Right.
president hears that. I hear President Trump is very good at asking all of the different folks that he has underneath of him their opinion, and his job as president is to make a decision. Once that decision is made, it's your job as his lieutenant to run with that decision. And if it's so egregious that you have such a problem with whatever the president's doing, then you resign.
Right.
That's simple, But you don't get a dagger in your hand and smile and kiss his ring. And while you're kissing the ring, you're reaching behind his back to put the dagger in his back.
Yeah.
So now that said, some of these folks, they don't have extensive or strong backgrounds in the fields that they're being put in. Now, that may be true,
Right.
but the key there is to find the right people to support those directors of those different agencies and those organizations to be able to let them know what's going on and I know in the intelligence field, they will give you, their job is, oh, heck, 4 years, or we can blow smoke up someone's caboose for 4 years and just give them a lot of glitz and bells and whistles, and they won't have a clue what's going on or know what to ask. You got to have the right people that know what to ask and tell the director or madam director, that these things are out there. They're trying to mislead you, and this is how to make sure that the president's mandate is being adhered to. And ultimately, the people that are blowing smoke need to be fired, frankly.
So you had mentioned Madam. So I wanted to, while you have it on the topic, to talk about Tulsi Gabbard. Do you think Tulsi Gabbard, and I love Tulsi Gabbard, I think she was an excellent choice for the job. Do you think Tulsi Gabbard's going to be able to hit the ground running and get in there and start cleaning up some of this rot and corruption? Or do you think she's going to fall prey to, like you said, the shiny objects?
Well, I love how she took down Ms. Harris when they were having a presidential debate. That was right. I mean, that was so sweet to watch. It was like slicing. It was like a Sioux fest, slicing someone up right in front of you. But that said, she's going to need help.
Right.
And if she has the right people, helping her guide through through the labyrinth, and believe me, the intel community is quite a labyrinth. I think she'll do fine. And she's loyal to the cause. She's obviously came from the Democrats and realized what the Democrats were, and then migrated to become a Republican. And I think she'll be a fine director. She just needs to have the right people that know where the skeletons are in the closet, and can make sure when someone's trying to blow smoke that they can whisper in her ear, "This is nonsense," and they're trying to mislead you.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, the folks President Trump had in his first administration, so many of them were smoke blowers. Mark Milley, treasonous. And I hope to see some of these people. You also often hear the word retribution. They don't need retribution. They need to be disciplined. For what Mark Milley did when it came to China, I mean, that's treason, espionage. I mean, you call it what you want it. The guy's committed crimes. And I don't think we should let these people get off scot-free. They broke the law. They need to answer some questions. Just like, as I said on the top of the show, Juan Merchant, some of these folks who have prosecuted and persecuted Donald Trump need to stick around for a little bit and answer some questions that we all have. They had no problem spending. My estimate is over $100 million between the Mueller investigation, the Jack Smith witch hunt. Who pays for that, Russ? I think these folks better stay around and get ready to answer some questions. I want to, speaking of questions, take a few that we have here. I don't think I should say the people's name on air, just so they don't, no retribution is against them for watching this show. We'll just go with the question. What was your motivation on blowing the whistle on the Patriot Act?
Well, I sort of fell into that. It wasn't something I decided to be a hero. It was at the end of the war. The statue came down in the square there in Baghdad, and I had a whole list of things that I wanted to do that I put on my to-do list because I was working 16 hours a day. And my boss, said, I said, "Hey, I don't need to work 16 hours a day." He said, the director said, "We're going to work 16 hours a day until," I said, "Fine." So I like anybody, I got my to-do list out and started doing things that I put in the background. And then one of them was the fact that one of the missions I was working on with the war, I had to get coverage on something, and I can't say what, but it had to do with space capabilities. And then when I contacted the right people to get the information, I said, "Look, I need this, and I need to make sure that we're not going to step on our own toes or violate our rules, and make sure Americans aren't caught up in this." And my response back was, "Oh, don't worry, Russ. We got this thing ironclad." Ironclad means 24/7, 365, everything, all the time. And I'm like, "I mean, you mean everything?" And they said, "Yeah, everything." And so in other words, there was no problem me getting what I wanted, but that meant that all American communications were being caught up in this as well.
Interesting.
I contacted the right people because I have sources all over the intelligence service, inside NSA, and they came back and they said, "Russ, believe me, it's much worse than that. It's also the terrestrial capabilities. Most of the communications within our country is done by fiber optics and or microwave. And NSA tapped into all of it, and they were collecting everything, especially metadata, for every single U.S. citizen in this country.
Wow.
And that's when I went, oh my gosh! It was like getting hit with a brick in the head. Boop. At that point, right after that, when I called the site to find out a little bit more, I think the security people at NSA were listening in, and they realized that I had found out what they'd done, violated the Constitution, the law, NSA's own regulations, and they sent me in for an emergency psychological evaluation to say that I was crazy.
Oh,
So,
boy.
even though I just had one 9 months previous, which I passed with flying colors like all the rest of them I've ever had. So now all of a sudden I'm psycho crazy.
Oh, boy.
So that's ultimately, and matter of fact, the final straw was because, and this was all with General Hayden. I was,
Right.
This battle was with Hayden. And, I don't think very highly of General Hayden, So it was a February in 2004. They put me in the gas shack of all things. This was my punishment. They suspend my clearance. They put me in the gas shack. My job is to go take government vehicles and fill them up with gasoline or have maintenance done on them. So this was my punishment. I'm supposed to grovel for a while, keep my mouth shut, and maybe they'll let me have my big time job back again. I'm just not a groveler. I couldn't do it. And then there was a February day where we had snow, just like, we got a foot of snow out there right now. I don't think that February was that much snow. It might have been, 6 inches of snow or something. And they wanted me to go wipe the snow off of like 200 vehicles.
Oh, goodness.
And I blew up, and then I went right to the press. So it's at that point, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, because we're bantering back and forth about what's going on, and I wanted to talk to the head of security, and then I realized that he didn't know. He was just told to retaliate against me. I didn't know that the president of the United States was involved in this. I just knew that this had to involve the director.
And that was George Bush at the time, right? George W. Bush.
George W. Bush, yeah, and of course,
I wonder what would have happened if it never snowed that day, Russ, and they didn't tell you to go clean off the cars.
I'd like to believe that I would have come to and look at myself in the mirror and would have said I would have come to that conclusion anyhow. But sadly, the catalyst was that February day in 2004, when I blew my top, and I just told them I'm taking a snow day, and I immediately contacted the press that day. Although, believe me, it was hard. It was hard as hell trying to find the right people to talk to in the press.
Right. I wish you would have reached out to Lou Dobbs back then, because Lou would have been happy to help you out, I think. We're going to take one more question here. We're coming up on a hard out for everyone watching on Patriot TV. They only give us an hour here of time, so we've got to keep it tight with them. The question, this one coming from Twitter: do you see yourself maybe working in this Trump administration? Would you be interested in doing so?
If I get called, I will heed the call, and I would help them out, especially if they need help with the intelligence community. Because I kind of think future Madam Director Gabbard is going to need some help. If I get the call, and I'm right down there, just north of DC as it is, so it's not like I'd have to relocate. I will serve if they feel that they need my help. It's of course it's up to them.
I think you'd be a great addition to any administration, let alone this one, who I think is going to do great things in this next 4 years. We looking back at the last 4 years of what we're on, it can't be any worse. But I don't even look at it that way, because President Trump has so much in mind for this country and for our agencies and for the direction moving forward. And he hasn't even taken office yet, and things are already starting to feel different. This Christmas, Russ, felt like one that, of one in 2016 and 2017 when President Trump was in, where you can go say Merry Christmas. People seemed happier. People were spending money. There was cheer. There was joy. I spent a Christmas Eve at an uncle's house out in Long Island among some far left liberals, and I try not to talk politics because I don't like to hurt anyone's feelings, because I get a little temperamental and, start to use a little profanity, which people don't like on the show. So I've tried to stop. And that's my New Year's resolution, to stop cursing on the show. But, it comes to me. And even among the liberals, at the Christmas Eve dinner table, they didn't have much to say. And I think there's a sense of defeat, Russ, and acceptance that President Trump is here, and he's here to make America great again. Russ, Happy New Year. I hope you had a great Christmas. Just hang tight for a second here as we wrap up the show. Folks, I want to thank you all for joining us today on this live edition of the Great America Show. Please be sure to join us back here tomorrow for the Great America Show, where our quest for truth, justice, and the American way continues, folks. We'll see you back here tomorrow, same time, same place. Until then, may God bless you. May God bless America, and may God bless the great Lou Dobbs.